Hello and welcome to Doom Does DVD, and this is Disney Classics number 8, Make Mine Music. So I did a little research about this weird era of Disney that we're currently going through, and it turns out my guesses were mostly correct about what's going on here, and that's financial and cultural instability caused by World War II. Staff were drafted, budgets were cut, the studio was even called upon to make some propaganda films, so there just wasn't the time or the money to make a full-length feature. Even before the US officially joined the war, that still has effects on things like international box office. And it turns out when you look at the original run, films like Pinocchio and Fantasia didn't actually do very well at the cinema. They were actually considered flops. So at this point, Disney's kind of straining to stay afloat, far from the unstoppable monolith we know today. I also came across a term I hadn't actually heard before, in that these films are generally known as package films, because it's lots of different shorts packaged together. Makes complete sense, but somehow I've never heard of that, and if you'd have asked me, I'd have probably called it like an anthology or something like that, but package works too. And so this gets called Disney's package era. So now we're up to the third of the 6 package films. Of course, it's another one I have never seen, and I have to make some predictions about what we're going to see. So at this point I know it's going to be lots of different shorts glued together with something. The only clue from the poster is the tagline, Happy Comedy Musical, which isn't really a lot to go on, apart from it'll be a comedy musical that's hopefully kind of fun and happy. So given that and the title Make Mine Music, I'm expecting this is going to be more musical. It's going to be more like a cheap version of Fantasia than it is any kind of narrative story. At least that's my expectation, but as we have seen, my expectations are often completely wrong. So let's see what this one's all about. Well, that was the most packages we have seen in a package film so far. 10 different segments in this one. And the only thing they're really glued together with is title cards. It's just a sequence. My suggestion that this would be more like a cheaper version of Fantasia sort of rings true, but it's not quite like that. The short films here are a lot more narrative, whereas Fantasia is a bit more abstract. At least that is when you take all the parts as an average. But realistically, it's not really fair to judge them like that, because especially here, each segment is very much on its own and has zero relation to anything else, so judging the whole thing as a whole isn't really fair. You kind of have to take each one separately. But the key difference here compared to Fantasia is that, well, Fantasia used classical music. Everything here is more contemporary, at least for 1946, that is. It lists all those names of people at the beginning, which I presume are supposed to be famous, and hopefully in 1946 you would have recognised them. But I haven't got a clue who any of these people are. Benny Goodman, Dean Shaw, the Andrews sisters, I have no clue who any of these people are, and listening to them sing, no one particularly stood out as super interesting. Although to be fair, they weren't really given anything really interesting to sing. A lot of the songs here have the same problem. They're not really what I would call songs traditionally. They're more like narration that happens to be sung. They're just describing what's happening on screen, and they do that with really basic repetitive melodies, and there's no choruses or breaks or anything interesting musically about it. Basically, if it had been spoken, I don't think it would have been any different. So let's have a quick talk about the shorts themselves. I'm not going to go through all 10 one by one because that wouldn't be very interesting. They're all over the place in terms of quality and content, but none of them really get past that sort of average level. It's all sort of bad to average rather than anything higher, unfortunately. And there's some very weird choices going on, at least through my modern eye. I have no idea how it would have played in 1946. We start off with 2 feuding redneck families who basically murder each other until there's only 2 left and they get married. The final joke being domestic abuse is a thing. There's a segment which was apparently cut from Fantasia, and you can sort of tell that the animation quality is a higher level on that one. But you can also see why it was cut, because it was boring. There's a whole thing about a star baseball player who then strikes out. And the grand finale ending, we have an opera singing whale who gets shot and then sings in heaven. So yeah, calling this a happy comedy musical is a massive stretch for every definition of all three of those words. And with that, probably time to move on. I didn't really enjoy any of this, so there's not really much else I can say about it. But that's only my opinion. Let me know your thoughts down in comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next week with fun and fancy free.